Welcome to the News Navigators with me, Jeremy Deacon.
And me, Jonathan Starling.
Jonathan in hot, sweaty Bermuda, me in absolutely freezing UK.
No,
It
it's
has
quite
been,
wintry here at the moment. It's was 13 degrees Celsius on my phone when I
you
looked
poor
at it this
thing,
morning.
that's awful, mate. That's awful. I've been wearing sort of protective trousers to walk around, undergarments that go down to my knees because it's been so
Well,
cold.
I turned
We've
off
had
my bedroom fan last night. That's how cold it is.
You're trying to get a bit of one-upmanship on the weather. I tell you, it's been blowing gales, pouring with rain, and absolutely freezing. I was quite enjoying wearing long trousers, which I think I said before, but I've had enough now. The weather's getting to me.
I mean, I would
Anyway,
encourage you to still wear trousers, though.
I do occasionally, yeah, yeah, especially when I go outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a busy week, or busy few weeks, and I think Jonathan, we both talked before, and we thought that the one of the biggest issues was the whole education reform and what is happening. There seems to be, I don't know what you think, an enormous amount of confusion about whether there is going to be a three-tier system in education, a two-tier, or a hybrid. Don't know. But I thought, looking at this yesterday and today, I thought it would be interesting and useful for our listeners and our viewers now, just to quickly recap on education reform. I don't know what you think, Jonathan, but I think to put it into context, this goes back to 2017, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm confused by the current situation, so I think a recap would be very helpful for setting the context.
Well, I think the word confused sums it up. I think everybody is. But
That or
anyway, if you,
chaos.
if you look back, so in 2017, the Minister of Education, it was Diallo Rabane at the time, introduced Plan 2022. Now, that was the strategic plan for public school education. And it was meant to be, it was set out to be a long term blueprint which was going to transform the public education system in Bermuda. Apparently, and I remember at the time, there was a lot of community input, including from parents, union students, the education people, the unions, etc. And it set goals to be implemented for the infrastructure, the type of schools, what outcomes are expected from students, etc., etc. The idea was under that there was a commitment, and it was an election commitment that the school system was going to move from three tiers, primary, middle, and senior, to two tiers, primary through to year 8, and then senior schools. So a lot
Right.
of middle schools were going to be, all the middle schools would be phased out. There were going to be signature learning programs, which you've seen at Cedar Bridge and Berkeley. Clearwater was meant to be an environmental signature learning school, wasn't it? And before I left, I didn't see anything happening at Clearwater, so I don't know what's happened with that. The parish primary schools, they're going to be expanded years 1 to 8. And, well, we're still waiting to see what's happened. So that's a little bit of context about it. Now, we know earlier this month that there were meetings at Francis Patton Primary School in Delwood, and there it seemed to be revealed that Plan 2022 was going to do a bit of a U-turn, and it was going to be like a different plan altogether. In that middle schools were probably going to continue, or they were going to be termed lower secondary satellite schools. Parish primary schools would revert back to P1 to P6 rather than expand to year 8. And some closures may be reversed or delayed. Now, of course, that completely contradicted what Plan 2022 was originally about. So the reaction has been quite something. The parents, not surprisingly, have expressed complete confusion, the word we used at the beginning of all this, and not a little bit of anger, which can't really blame them because it does appear on the face of it to be a rather sudden change of direction. Now, that also, of course, culminated in action by a demo by pupils, if you remember, who said, "We are not experiments." And they were pupils at Francis Patton. The union said that the statements coming out of those meetings did not align with what the teachers had been told, and they were worried about the disruption and the uncertainty. And they accused the government at the time of failing to engage in proper consultation, contrary to agreements. Now, at this stage, I remember commenting, Jonathan, that the Minister of Education, Crystal Caesar, had needed to come out and start communicating, because there was an utter balls up in the communication here, and this all comes down to the communication. So she came out and acknowledged concerns, but insisted that no final decisions had been made, which, okay. And she said that there was an active feedback gathering phase. That quite know what that means. When they were consulting with internal, external stakeholders. Now, to me, I wasn't clear about what that feedback gathering phase was. Was that on what an apparent U-turn on Plan 2022? Or was it continuation of consultation on Plan 2022? And as I mentioned before, there's been plenty of consultation. And she also promised a better update, a clearer update, mid-February next month. So that was a potted history, and I hope I explained that. There's a lot to explain. If you look back at 2017, 9 years worth of explaining to do. To me, there's, a couple of things that come out of here, and then what the issues raised from the last few weeks are, what they say, and what the bigger picture is. And the question of trust, I think, is really important here. That I think longer term, short, medium, long term, there's betrayal of trust, or a lack of trust now in what government actually wants to do. I'm going to continue here, Jonathan, because I'm on a roll. At least I think I'm on a roll. Our listeners and viewers maybe have switched off already. Is it a policy retreat? So, this is one of the issues raised from what's happened the last few weeks. Is it a policy retreat? Is it a U-turn? We don't know. And that's not being made clear. I think the minister's statement probably confused things even more. As I mentioned earlier on, there's been a massive communications failure here. I mean, this is textbook, if you're in PR or comms, of what not to do. It's absolutely textbook as far as I'm concerned. And, you're looking at these mixed messages. You're looking at what appears to be an abrupt shift. And as I said, they've helped to undermine public trust. When the minister finally came out, to me, her comments were reactive, and they were made because of the backlash, rather than kind of preemptively ensuring alignment and clarity. I don't know whether she was taken by surprise at the messages coming out of those public meetings at the schools, or whether those giving the briefings got it wrong, though it's hard to imagine that they got it totally wrong, because presumably they were the education officials. And I think it suggests that, responsibility for decision making, where is that? Where is that at the moment? Who is making the decisions here? And then there's a little matter, of course, of the somewhat 8.5 million that we spent on those education consultants from Australia. Now, if we really are doing a U-turn on Plan 2022, we spent millions to get back to square one. And I think what was really interesting when I read the story in the Gazette, which originally broke this issue, is that it's been described as, well, we're now calling a dog a cat.
Well, that's in relation to the middle schools, right?
Basically, yeah. But I mean, that was a central plank, wasn't it, to get rid of the middle schools? It was a central plank to get rid of them. So I don't know, Jonathan, that's my thoughts. I've got bigger questions that it raises, but I don't know what your thoughts are so far. I can come back to the bigger questions later on.
Well, I mean, it's been said before, I forget who first kind of coined it, but they said it probably around 2010 or something, that the education ministry is a bit of a poison chalice. It's a big issue, and for quite some time, the reform of the education system has been kind of kicked down. The can's been kicked down the road a bit. So when the PLP started, when they got reelected in 2017, they were really ambitious with their plans for the reform. So on the one hand, it was good that that it was finally being addressed and no longer kicked down the road. The whole process has not been ideal since was it 2022 when the whole thing really got off the ground after COVID.
Yeah, it hasn't been ideal, but I think there's been a lot of question marks over the amount of money available for school reorganization and stuff like that. And, I mentioned Clearwater, that was going to be down for an environment place, but nothing's happened.
I mean, I will
So,
say personally, I never fully understood or agreed with the concept of signature schools. And the reason I say that is because I think kids are too young to really be deciding on what they want as a future career. To me,
especially men, especially boys.
yeah, our brains do develop a bit
Yeah,
slower. It
yeah,
comes down to a philosophy of education. For me, education should be about creating a well-rounded individual with a good general knowledge and a good kind of critical thinking. And
mm,
of course, if any student displays a particular aptitude for this or that, then I would hope that the education authorities would encourage them and provide them with the resources to support them with that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's why I was kind of critical of the signature schools per se. To me, that was saying that education is about choosing what kind of worker you want to be for the rest of your life. Whereas to me, education was about making you a well rounded whole human, if that makes sense. So that's why I
No,
was,
it does make sense. I was actually really confused by the issue of signature schools initially, and this might be my mistake. I thought it was going to be the whole school, or a large part of the school dedicated to these subjects. But it turned out that it was you can pick that subject if you like. It wasn't going to be the entire ethos of a school. I was
yeah,
quite
that
surprised by that.
confused me further as well. I mean, again, that was just my general thought on signature schools, but if they were going to do it, then okay. I don't have a kid in the schools at the moment. I've got a, godson and a niece who are in the schools, but I don't directly have any children in the schools. So I kind of took a back seat just to see how the education was going to go. Any reform can be good or bad. Even if I disagree with the idea, it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just means I was philosophically not convinced by it. But I will say that the whole process has been rocky throughout. I mean, we saw how what was it, West End Primary, and
Yeah,
there was another school as well, St. George's Prep. I want to say one
it
of the
was St David's, wasn't there? There was a big U-turn on St David's.
right. So there were issues raised throughout that. Honestly, I
I
never
think,
fully
yeah,
understood it because I don't really have much of an emotional connection with my alma mater, with my old school, especially not my primary school. But there's different histories in different sections of the community. I went to
totally, yeah.
Saltus from primary all the way to seniors, so just to put that out there as a qualifier. So I didn't fully understand that emotional connection, but I do understand the history, especially with segregation. Some schools were the white schools, some schools were the black schools.
Yeah,
The white schools obviously got the better location and the better infrastructure. So there's that history.
there's a lot of history. I understand the emotional part of it, having covered many, many stories where parents have been protested at their school closure, partly because it's, part of the community. It's a central part of the community, and they don't want to see it go. It's the start of the degradation of that community. It's like you lose your school, you lose your post office, you lose your local pub. Well, it would be that case in the UK. So I totally get the emotional attachment to it.
I get it intellectually. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, sure, yeah. But no,
Um,
I do get that. And having covered dozens of school protests about closures, I kind of understand what they're coming from.
so so they did the consultations, and part of it was a matrix to decide on the infrastructure, which schools were best to keep, type thing. I do think they should have included more of the cultural aspect, which they did go back and
I
revise.
did go back, yeah.
However, it wasn't clear if they went and rescored every school or just the schools where people were protesting.
Correct. Which added another layer of confusion over the whole process
And
and
I,
doubt.
and there other schools could have kicked up and said, well, if you're rescoring, you should rescore all of us.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised that other schools didn't protest after that. And maybe they did. Maybe they did rescore everyone. It just wasn't clear to me. And I think it's important to note that there are, as I understand it, there's the ministry is not a it's not a monolith. You have a communication strategy for the Ministry of Education, but there was also a separate communication strategy for education reform. So you had
Yes.
two different communication narratives or strategies going on, and I feel that
Almost three.
there were
Almost
three.
three, actually. If you talk about the consultants as well, what you've looked at is what you've identified as something I was going to come on to. There were three different sets of people here: the reform unit, the consultants, and the ministry. Now, I talked to a lot of people involved about this, and I can never write a story on it because I could never get enough information. So, with that proviso, before I say this, but there seemed to be a lot of antipathy between the three groups,
I got
and they
that
wouldn't
impression
talk to
too.
each other.
Yeah,
You know, you're laughing. You probably heard the same thing,
I have.
and I think yeah, and that has probably helped to negate a lot of work. It's probably stalled progress on things. Obviously, there's a bunch of silos. Obviously, there are people saying, no, my idea is right. Whether that's fed into what has happened in the last few weeks, I don't know. But all is not well, clearly, and hasn't been for a while within education. So you're talking about a comm strategy, yes, but the three units can't agree.
Yeah, so there wasn't any, as far as I can tell from the outside looking in, there's no one unified communication strategy. And it's not clear to me that even if there is communication strategy, if the official announcements are part of that, are they actually listening to the advice of the communication plan? I don't know. I mean, you've worked in PR before. You've had cases where you've come up with a communication strategy and then your client goes rogue, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail. Just brings back bad memories.
So,
Long nights, sleepless nights.
that's why, just in case the communication strategists are listening, I'm not necessarily throwing the blame on them. I don't know what
No,
happened. I don't
I,
understand the situation.
I'm not throwing the blame on any of them because I think there needs to be leadership from the top. Pull these all these people together and bang a few heads if needs be. But I wonder, going back to that, Jonathan, I wonder if that's the root cause of what happened. That one com strategy says, yeah, go and announce what's happening at these two meetings at Francis Patton and Delwood, and it's all good because this is what's going to happen. Then somebody else who says, oh my goodness me, no, we don't want to release that. We shouldn't release that. So let's have a different com strategy and put this out from the minister saying it's still ongoing. Whichever way, mate, it's shambles.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've read through the different reports, the press releases recently. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a real problem.
and you and I are pretty, I mean, the whole point of the podcast is news navigators. We read the news and try to help people navigate it, and we're confused. And you can imagine the average person on the street's even more confused here.
Our rudder is broken. We don't know where we're going.
Yeah, we can't really help you navigate this one.
Well, we can give a perspective,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
we can explain the confusion, if nothing else.
yeah, and
I
it didn't
think
help
that
that the premier, of course, was he was overseas at Davos last
yeah,
week, so he couldn't even respond. I mean, he shouldn't have to. The minister is there. The minister of education is the one responsible for education. I'm looking forward to her coming out and helping to clarify this issue.
she gave an interview on ZBM and one to the RG.
Right.
To me, neither of them went far enough to clarify what is actually happening. I think they were both fairly the usual type of political interview where the subject matter was steered away with non-answers.
I mean, I will
Yeah. I
say,
have, by the way, Jonathan, I have invited her personally. She follows the News Navigators, Crystal Caesar on LinkedIn. I've messaged her this morning, and I did emailed DCI, that's the Department of Communications and Information, asking for an interview. I've not heard back yet, though. I am not actually going to hold my breath.
No, I mean, I quite like Minister Caesar, and I do hope that she takes this opportunity to come and help us understand and help our listeners understand. I mean, the most optimistic scenario, or I don't want to call it spin because it's not my job to do the spin, but my most optimistic interpretation of what's going on is that they realize that maybe their ambitions or aspirations for the reform were too optimistic compared to the reality on the ground. And so there's nothing wrong with saying we're going to take a pause, we're going to step back, we're not going to be able to do the reform in the time frame we had previously communicated. And there's always going to be that case where you got to rip off the Band-Aid and it's going to cause pain no matter what. That's the most optimistic interpretation I could put forward. But if you're going to do that, you need a clear communication strategy where you anticipate the questions that are going to come from this and the reactions. And I just feel that has not occurred in this case for whatever reason. It just doesn't seem to have happened. And I don't know.
It hasn't. And I think her statements that I've seen have muddied the waters because they're talking about further consultation with all stakeholders. Consultation on what? Because we've had all the consultation you need on the original plan 2022. We saw that because it was started to be implemented. The minister, when she came in after the election, put everything on pause, started again. So what is being consulted on? I don't know. And I think, we could. I do think that because education, as we know in Bermuda, is so important, and because in the past that the education ministry was a real revolving door. I remember being at the Gazette, and I think there'd been something like 11 ministers in 10 years or something. This was going back 10 years or so. It's been such a revolving door that I honestly think government generally, has lost a lot of credibility over this because it's been a cock-up.
Well, I will say that, when the PLP came into power, I think the former Minister of Education, Minister Diallo Rebane, he was the minister pretty much since 2017 until 2025
this
election.
Year.
So there was at least that
25 election, yeah. Well, there were. They're absolutely. I totally agree, and credit to them. And the OBA was just as bad. Don't get me wrong. I think they had 4 different ministers in their time.
They did. Yeah, a minister a year.
Yeah, it really was actually. Yeah, I think so. And the last minister there, I think, only served a couple of months before they lost the election.
So at least, for better or worse, there was at least consistency with having a single minister for a long period of time.
And it was a good idea.
Yep.
I don't know why he moved, actually. I don't know if he asked to be moved or was moved. I was quite surprised because I thought he would be wanting to see through. This is Diallo Rebane wanted to see through the plan 2022.
We'd have to get his thoughts on it, but he may not want to comment.
I think we might get steered away from the proper answer on that one, John.
My personal view of that was because he was so much the face of the education reform and the rocky period that they had with the protests, especially from West End. I think that maybe for political purposes, it was good to get a new face, to kind of take the heat out of the education reform process. But of course, now all of that heat is now directed to Minister Caesar.
And she's made it worse, or it's been made worse for her.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I still don't understand what's going on. Even with the potted history you gave, I'm still confused about the decisions that were made and the communication strategy in question.
Yeah, I think to me it sounds like the original plan 2022 is being completely, or will be completely hollowed out actually, and end up as being a bit of a ghost framework.
And you can understand
in a way a shame because at least under plan 2022 there was a direction.
Yeah.
It had bumps along the way, but there was a direction.
I completely understand the frustration of, the parents and the educators, because even if they didn't necessarily agree with the plan, at least they had that plan, as you said, the direction. Everyone was working with this expectation that next year was going to be X, Y, and Z, and now it's A, B, and C. So it's a bit of a whiplash for parents and the educators, the principals to get their head around, because
I
now
agree.
everything has changed or paused and no
Exactly.
one knows.
Well, we're not quite sure. We think it's paused,
See,
but which communication plan was communicating that? So frustrating.
yeah, I mean, Minister Caesar, if you're listening, we do hope that you come on. I would love to have you here to kind of clear the air and help us make sense of what's going on. Maybe there's very good
Please.
reasons, and we're just getting, the what's that game, Chinese Whispers?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know, but
Mm.
we're happy to help you clarify if you want to come on.
I will ask you very easy questions. No hardball questions whatsoever, ever at all.
Sure.
Well, on that note, fingers crossed.
I mean,
So,
on another note
was it?
about something that caught me off by surprise was while the premier was at Davos, the World Economic Forum last week, and he gave a presentation. I think it was one of those kind of side presentations that happen away from the main stage.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And he was talking about Bermuda has ambitions to become the world's first fully on-chain economy. And
Please explain, Jonathan. Please explain.
I was going to ask you to explain because I don't fully understand what on-chain economy is.
Oh, I don't.
The best
And
that
it
I
says
can
here, so
understand is on-chain is related to blockchain, which is the
it
technology
is.
which
I think
allows you
so.
to properly trace ownership or identification over time. So
For
it's
me, it's
harder
a,
to
it's a
falsify.
glorified but very good accounting system that speed things up.
Right. So it will speed
Don't
things
quote
up.
me.
That's
And it will reduce costs. The idea will help to reduce costs as well.
yeah, by making things more digital, so you can like I think they gave the example of TCD. You can go in, you
Yeah.
can do things more online in a sense.
You can get your blockchain out of your wallet and pay in hand over a Bitcoin.
Yeah, they were talking about a stable
No, I'm being
coin.
facetious.
Now, I don't fully understand all of that technology. I'm not an old fogey. I'm not as old as Jeremy here, but
Careful.
I'm not a techie person. I'll put it that way. I just figured out how to set up a DVD player when they stopped issuing them, if that helps. So,
Look, okay, I'm not going to lie here, right? I actually use my friend ChatGPT,
see, I don't
right?
even use that.
Well, I'm getting used to using it, and so I had to get ChatGPT. I thought it was quite appropriate, being a modern technology, to ask what the hell this meant. So he says the intention is to be the world's first fully on-chain national economy. So according to Chat, this means that everyday financial activity, payments, transfers, business transactions would be recorded and processed on blockchain technology. Now, I think blockchain technology has actually been around for quite a long time now. And as I said, I think it's a glorified accounting system that helps to speed things up. So you're getting around things like the banks. Doesn't do the banks. So you're getting around all those kind of fees that you would get with a bank. If you do a transaction on a credit card, you get charged a percentage, don't you, and stuff like that. And you get to pay for the privilege of having for a credit card. So I'm sure there's people out there who are going to say this is complete bollocks, but I don't
I
know. We'll see.
I think that I think it can work, and I think it can save a lot of costs and make things a lot more frictionless, as I think it's phrased. But I do think it's going to need a lot of public education and people to get used to it. I understand that it's going to be voluntary initially.
Yes, I don't really know how we're going to be a national one if it's voluntary, because given our demographics, and I'm getting there myself, and I say this with greatest respect to all those people my age or older, but I imagine a lot of us are going to be quite resistant to this, mainly because of fear of not understanding it. I remember when the story came out on the RG, and I posted a comment, and I was saying, "Good grief, please, please! I'm just hanging on by my fingernails now with technology, and if I didn't have my children, I would have fallen." And I think it probably might cause a bit of distress or misunderstanding from older people.
I mean, I think we're going to have to retain the older system for some time. So we're not going to necessarily see the saving cost because not everyone is going to adopt it. But for the
No.
early adopters, I mean, over time, people are going to phase out and it's going to be more phased in, I'll put it that way, as the demographics change.
I'll be phased out, mate, I'll tell you. But I don't. I mean, that's one side of it. I mean, there is a serious side of it that we've heard a lot about fraud and security with blockchain stuff. Cryptos, I suppose. I don't know if that's the same kind of stuff. We've heard a lot about those. And like we said, that if you want these so-called digital wallets and stuff like that, well, you've got to understand it. We've kind of touched on that a little bit, and we need to have a very clear framework. Presumably, the BMA, if it isn't already, has to work on the regulations and oversight of how this is going to happen. So, to me, if it does happen, it's a voluntary thing. If it's going to get some traction, there's a lot of things to do before it's going to get anywhere near being a national thing.
I mean, I think it is potentially good. I mean, there's a lot of hype and stuff around blockchain and Bitcoin and all of that. It is a bit of a bubble, but there are valid uses to it. And I think that what is being proposed will benefit the country over time. And, not just the public service, but also the individual customers of the public service, the public. So it's just a matter of that education and getting used to it, I guess, and making sure we're using it for the best purpose.
What's kind of interesting is that this has been hailed. It's been in partnership with Coinbase and who are the other guys? Coinbase. Let me just go back to my notes because I can't remember.
Was it Penrose?
Coinbase and Circle. That's right.
Circle right.
Set up an office here, or they incorporated here some time ago. What's interesting to me is I've not seen this kind of thing make news anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it's already been a leader, but sometimes it's better following when you can see other people's mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I do think it's worth taking the risk on some things. At times, Bermuda can be too conservative and won't adopt things early because they want to see how it plays out. And I get it, that does make sense for some things, but I'm not against us also experimenting and trying new things either and being innovative. I will say, I personally am going to have to research it more, and I hope that we've had people on talking about AI before, and this is something I think we're going to need to get an expert.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, hopefully, I don't know if people at Coinbase or Circle listen to this, but if they do, please drop us a line because we'd love to have you on and talk about it a little bit more. We really would. In the meantime, Jonathan, when I get back from the UK, I look forward to seeing you get your digital wallet out and buy me a beer with a Bitcoin.
Or I don't have a digital wallet, but I'll need to figure out how to get one.
Well, you've got until the end of March, mate, to work it out. And I shall be very impressed if you take me to the Swizzle Inn and buy me a beer with a digital wallet.
Interestingly, there is some like uneven adoption of these kind of technologies. So take a Rock Island Cafe, for example. It's a cafe on Reed Street in the middle of the city of Hamilton. Mm-hmm. You can only pay with cash there. You can't pay with like a debit or a credit card. They don't accept that because of the cost of the POS, the point of service payment system.
Yep.
But you can, however, pay with Bitcoin, I believe, there.
Can you really?
Yeah, they accept, I think it's Bitcoin. They might accept one of the other digital currencies. And I'm saying that, and I'll go there tomorrow and find out I was wrong. But that's my understanding. I've heard people say that they can pay with Bitcoin there, but they can't pay with a debit card. So there are some places that are already accepting these kind of cryptocurrencies, I guess.
I see. I go back to, I'm 63 in May, and I just want to carry on as I am. I don't want any more tech being thrown in my face, thank you.
I hear you.
I'm stuck in the mud. And I guess a lot of our listeners probably are as well. I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Well, I mean, you're embracing AI pretty well, and you're using it for the podcast, so it's good.
I am. I'm intrigued by how to teach AI. Actually, spent a lot of time teaching it and feeding it information and what to do and what not to do. The results are pretty good, I have to say, although I do find that there is a need for constant reminders. I haven't seen it hallucinating. It made a name up once, which was rather bizarre. That's the only hallucination I've seen. But yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with it. It's okay. I use it quite minimally, a lot for research, and even then I'm careful because I ask it to always cite its sources, so I can go and it's not some jackrabbit.com taking me down a Google rabbit hole, and that it is a recognised source, and I click on the link. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay. A lot more to come from it, I think. But that's we've done a little podcast on that. Maybe we should do it again because there's been so much progress since then. Really has. Anyway, so if you know about digital wallets and you've got an opinion about digital wallets, and if you can correct everything that we've said that's wrong, we really like to know. You can get us on any social media. You can message us there, or it's thenewsnavs@gmail.com. I think, Jonathan, we both exposed our ignorance, so maybe we should get out while we're still slightly ahead on blockchain and crypto and on-chain technologies. What do you think?
Yes, we will study and get back to help people navigate these things better.
And you're going to buy me that pint.
Sure.
March the 3rd, okay? I'll be over my jet lag and I'll meet you with a swizzle.
I might get you a digital pint, a non-fungible token of a pint.
Sounds disgusting. All right, mate. On that note, take care.
All right. Bye.
See ya. Bye.